So, kind of leapfrogging off of that, you mentioned a little bit about like new metal and Linkin Park, and of course, Deep Purple and stuff in your childhood. With all of that, what inspired you to start the ALVABEAT project? Because you mentioned a lot of like rock bands. So, what electronically was the thing that pushed you to want to do this?
So as I said, I think it's been my parents all the way through. Essentially, I've been lucky enough that my dad grew up in England. When Queen was big, all these amazing bands, and thankfully at some point he picked up the Chemical Brothers in the '90s. And so I also grew up with Chemical Brothers blasting, and like on like vinyl, like proper loud. Probably not very good for my hearing, you know what I mean? But yeah, I went to see them. I was really big into them already, but he took me to see them in northern Spain when I was 7 or 8. So I went from going to see Deep Purple to going to see the Chemical Brothers, and it was like that. Also, just absolutely. So I already loved Deep Purple.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I saw the Chemical Brothers, I had like another awakening. Where I was like, well, it sounds like the spaceships on like stage. What is going on?
Yeah.
And yeah, ever since I've seen them about 15 times. I
Damn.
absolutely love, yeah, I absolutely love Chemical Brothers.
Okay.
So stuff like Chemical Brothers, Underworld, The Prodigy. I've seen them quite a few times. I absolutely love The Prodigy. And I never really saw myself able to make that music because, as I said, what I always had available to me in Spain was Spanish guitar, electric guitar. I went to music production classes when I was a teenager, with Pro Tools and stuff. And everything I ever learned there was high level, like rock music. But whenever I asked the question, like, yeah, but how do you get a synthesizer? No one ever knew, just because that wasn't really anything that anyone ever really did over there.
Yeah.
So when I moved to England, I was like, this is my time to learn how to do that. Obviously, when I moved, it was 2012. It was the height of EDM. You know what I mean? I was proper into like Skrillex, all that kind of stuff. But the most easy thing to learn about was like kind of pop Avicii kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I learned how to make that. Um, I made it for quite a while with one of my friends, and we did okay with it. We made like cheesy Avicii music, which got released to like Trap Nation, all these places.
Fuck yeah, dude. Trap Nation is huge.
Yeah, well, it was back in the day. I don't really know if they're still there, to be fair. But,
I mean, I think it's still around. I could be wrong, but still, man, congratulations. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. So when it happened, it was great. But every time I made that music, in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm so close to doing what I want, but it's still not what I want. You know, I'm making music which makes me like happy and it's fine, but it all felt very commercial. And in the background, I just started spending the money I made from work and buying synthesizers just to look at them because I didn't really know how to use them. So like I bought like a Korg MS-20 and I was like, oh my God, that looks amazing. But what do I do with it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, slowly but surely, whilst I was doing that project on my time off, I was doing like my own kind of stuff. And then it got to a point where I met an artist who's a friend of a friend, Matthew Gallagher, who's an amazing singer from where I used to live up in Preston. And we just said, you know what, we'll just make a track together, see what happens. And I literally, before we made that track, it was summer, I was in Spain. I spent about 3 months in the summer just learning sound design because I was like, I cannot go into that music studio with someone as talented as that guy and be like, what does this do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to know your shit. Got to be ready.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I learned sound design, made a track with him, spent way too long on the track. I'm not even kidding, probably about 3 or 4 years, because I was always kind of had this imposter syndrome where I was like, I'm winging it. I don't really know if I'm doing this the right way. I look at the Chemical Brothers and they've got their shit together. You know what I mean? They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
and I'm here, and it's all like, what am I doing? Like, I know the composition side of it and all that, but and yeah, then one day I just randomly just decided to release it, and it just ran extremely well. And at that moment, I was like, I need to keep on doing this because this is what I want to do.
Okay.
And yeah, and that's where we're at the moment.
So what song was that?
So that song's called Don't Know with Matt Gallagher.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first track I released on Aim to Head, which weirdly is only the second track I've ever released as ALVABEAT.
Mm-hmm.
I made a track prior to that, and I went down the rabbit hole of YouTube videos of this is how you market this, this is how you do this. I spent ages and ages and ages on it. And I think I got about 5 plays in 5 months on Spotify, and it was absolutely, yeah, I mean, it's 5 plays more than before, you know what I mean?
That's true.
But it was soul crushing at the same time. I was like, I put so much time and effort into this track. I spent, I kind of see myself as a perfectionist in my own mind, even though my music is far from perfect. I try and get it to the point where I think that's as far as I can take it.
Yeah.
And I spent so long on that track only to release it and just have 5 people listen to it. And I was like, no, this is just never going to work for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And yeah, out of chance on the Instagram, I posted that track. I met someone called Light for Storm.
Yeah.
And I was chatting to him, and he was like, I've released on this label. Your music sounds really good. I'll speak to them and see what we can do. And I was like, actually, I've got this track, which I've been working on for 4 years. And I don't know why. I've just never had, I've never been brave enough to release it. Because what if it doesn't sound as good as I think, and someone points at me and says, your music's horrible. And I got past that point, and it was Aim to Head. He put him in contact with them, and ever since, it's been 2 years. I've just released with them for 2 years.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, so if it wasn't for Light for Storm and Aim to Head, you know what I mean, I wouldn't be here.
Nice. Well, we're glad to have you here. Aim to Head is, yeah, they're fantastic. I kind of stumbled upon them, but such nice guys and like really care about what they do.
Yeah.
Man, 4 years on a track. Do you find yourself still doing that? Because I 100% empathize with the perfectionistic desire. You want it to be as good as possible, but I tend to find that, that last 20, 15, 10%, like the amount of effort that it gets, like it's kind of the diminishing returns. Like you can spend a lot more time and it's getting a little bit better. So have you noticed yourself, like, are you still doing the same thing, or have you reached a point where you're kind of like, you know what, this is good, this will do, I don't need to spend another 3 months on this?
Yeah, so I think something that happened which was positive was the fact that that track had such a positive outcome to it. Because as I said, I went from 5 plays to 450,000 plays on that track. So for me, that was mind blowing. You know what I mean? So that moment, I thought to myself, I know I've been making this track for 4 years, but I know, as you said, diminishing returns, that last 10, 20%, I literally spent the 3 years out of those 4 doing that 10, 20%.
Yeah.
Like the track was done. We spent the time, we pretty much almost finished the track in the studio on the day. But I just listened to it and I was like, yeah, that kit, oh, that's not perfect. Oh, I've learned how to do this. I should add that new thing that I've just learned.
Mm-hmm.
So it just all it's a big snowball. And essentially I was just nitpicking it for 3 years.
Yep.
But ever since I released that, I think part of the issue with the 4 years was that I was never secure about this music at all. As I said, I'd been exposed to extremely professional levels of this music, in the Prodigy, Chemical Brothers, Fatboy Slim, all that kind of stuff. So I was always comparing myself to them.
To industry veterans.
Yeah, exactly, which is extremely unrealistic. But at that point in time, you think to yourself, what I need to release has to be as good as that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I've learned over time. I've spoken. I can't remember. I think I saw it on Instagram, or I spoke to someone or something, and they said you should not be comparing yourself to, the leading industry professionals. They have, 20, 30 years experience. They have massive teams behind them. You should be comparing yourself to people on your same level, slightly above.
Hmm.
And ever since I've done that, I take like a month to make a track or something like that.
Yeah.
So it is definitely much easier now than it was then, obviously.
Yeah. Once you get a little bit of the not gratification, the word is escaping me. Like once you put it out and you're like, oh, people do like this, people enjoy what I do, then it is kind of like, okay, if I can do it once, I can do it again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it feeds into itself. So like the sound of ALVABEAT is pretty synthy and dark, and I can kind of hear like some of the influences that you've mentioned in it. Was there any modern artist that drove you into this specific sound, or is this something that you just sort of happened upon naturally as what your ear enjoyed?
I wouldn't specifically, other than the ones I've kind of mentioned, I wouldn't particularly say there's many other artists. There's lots which, since I've started releasing this kind of stuff, I've learned about, like Cloud, like Death Pact.
Yeah.
I'd even mention like people in our label, which I actually look at, like, for example, your music. It's not because I'm doing like a podcast with you or whatever, but I listen to it and, it's different. And that's what I like about my music. And when I listen to your stuff, I listen to it and I analyze it, and I'm like, God, how has he done this? It sounds
I
amazing
have no idea. Just making it up.
in the same place essentially.
Yeah.
Like you, like Matteo, Tura,
Yeah.
Sierra. Like I didn't even know like who she was, and I just remember listening to the track once and being like, "Whoa, that sounds like bad, like as in good bad." You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes me want to go to like a club, and I'm not that kind of person. And yeah, I'd say right now there's quite a lot of like modern artists, but they're all kind of smaller kind of level,
Hmm.
which is I kind of prefer, you know what I mean? But other than that, there's not really. It all kind of was a case of I'm making music I want to listen to, rather than like,
Then trying to emulate a style.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
I think that's brilliant. That's the best way to do it, honestly. I mean, it's creating the most honest thing for yourself.
Yeah, 100%. Because when I know if no one's enjoying my track, I know at least that I'm enjoying it. It's like I will listen to my track and be like, "Shit, that sounds good, man."
Yeah.
And if more people like it, that's good. But at least I'm at that point where I'm like, you might listen to my track and you'll be like, "Why has he put like a breakbeat sample there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, because that's what I want to listen to there." And in my mind, that sounds good, and yours it probably don't. But
Hmm.
as long as I listen to it and I'm like, yeah, that's good.
Well, I mean, I think there's no other way to do it. I was talking to Swarm for one of these, and he echoed a similar sentiment. He's like, you really just have to make sure that you're doing what you love to do, because if it's not something that you actually really enjoy, if you're not really happy with what you're making, you're not going to be able to do it consistently enough to make anything of it.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So